So we turn now to the controversy surrounding the future of the world's biggest island, Greenland, a tussle that pits NATO nations Denmark and the U.S. against each other.
Yeah, that's right. And for more, we are joined by Rob Huebert, who is the director of the Center for Military Security and Strategic Studies at the University of Calgary, and he's in Calgary, Canada. So, Rob, thanks for your time this morning. Now, the U.S. president has said that he is, in fact, not ruling out any options, and that was when he was asked if he would leave NATO to, achieve his goal of getting Greenland. How significant is this to you? I mean, that Greenland appears more important than the NATO alliance.
Well, it's bizarre is what it is, because the Americans since 1941 have had all base rights on Greenland. They've had everything that is necessary to ensure the security against first the Soviet threat and now the Russian threat. And the fact that Trump is so fixated on taking this action, where he's actually considering the possibility of rupturing NATO, just to simply leave him in a situation that is going to weaken his position against the Russians. In other words, if he follows through with any of these actions, we are going to be seeing a situation where the United States and all of Western Europe actually becomes much more vulnerable to the threat that the Russians pose, not in any capacity increasing it.
But President Trump, Rob, wants the Golden Dome. He believes that Greenland is an important aspect for this project of his, this missile defense system that he mooted in May last year. First up, how realistic is this Golden Dome concept, militarily and technologically? And what role would Greenland then actually play in this defense architecture?
Well, again, we're already seeing Greenland engaged. Part of the Pifluck base, formerly known as Thule, is in fact part of the surveillance system that would go into any of the warning systems. Again, the Denmark and Greenland governments have been completely open to the idea that you need to have that type of surveillance capability put in. It is realistic. I mean, people are talking about the Golden Dome as if it's appeared out of nowhere, but really what it represents is a response that was recognized as early as 2018 of a new generation of missiles that the Russians were introducing, the hypersonics, the stealth missiles, the ones that need a much more careful response because they are so much more dangerous and undetectable. And so Canada, Denmark, United States have all been realizing that they needed to update the surveillance capability. The upgrades to Thule Pifluck were representative of this. And now all of a sudden Trump is saying, I'm going to take this remarkably ill-advised step, which is going to sever its ability to cooperate with Denmark and Greenland. And it's going to be hurting the relationship with Canada as well, because Canada will be looking over its shoulder and wondering when it's next.
Yeah. And Rob, just to follow up on your previous response, you're saying that the fracturing of NATO puts the U.S., Greenland in a more vulnerable situation when it comes to Russia than, trying to get Greenland then. And I also want to find out what this means for Russia. Is Russia the big winner in all of this? I mean, especially if the U.S. president is willing to give up NATO.
Yeah, totally the big winner. All of a sudden, Russia now, and this goes back to the recently released American security document where Trump is talking about basically going away from collective security, from the Western unity that's been there for what is called spheres of influence, where he's saying, I'm going to reinstate what's called the Monroe Doctrine, which says the only thing I'm concerned about is controlling the Western Hemisphere. What happens in the Indo-Pacific region is not our concern. What happens in Europe is not our concern. The signaling to Putin, and I would add the signaling also to Xi, of such conversation is basically, yes, you can do what you want in your sphere of influence, just leave us alone. Now, given the actions that Putin has taken in Ukraine, and given what Xi has said about Taiwan, you can understand why this makes it so dangerous, not only for the Europeans and North Americans, but also for the Asian states as well.
Yeah, and Rob, with NATO now, NATO's position now looking more and more threatened. I mean, there are a whole host of European nations deploying personnel to Greenland at their request. I mean, does it signal to you that Europe might actually be preparing for a post-U.S. security model?
It sure looks that way. We have to remember, of course, though, that NATO has faced severe disagreements among its members, just never really at this level being instituted by the U.S. The Turks and the Greeks fought over Cyprus, and we, of course, going way back to 1956, the Americans, British, and French had a severe difference in regards to the Suez crisis. But this is the first time that the Americans, as an aggressor state, and then there's no other way of putting it, is the one that, of course, is causing all the other NATO countries to basically take actions they thought were unthinkable as much as a year ago.
And just right next to you on the screen is, sort of images of the NATO chief, Mark Rutte. He's emphasized alliance unity, but he's sidestepped Trump's Greenland remarks of late. What influence can Mr. Rutte exert to shape how his alliance responds to Washington's demands on Greenland without deepening transatlantic rifts?
Yeah, that's a difficult one. I don't know what you do, because on the one hand, if you pretend that everything's okay and just kind of hope that Trump finds the next pretty nickel that he's going to go chase after, and he has shown that, you run the risk that he is deadly serious on this. And the problem that we're seeing is, again, when we put the American doctrine document that came out, and then we look at it in the context of the American actions against Venezuela, and then we see the threats against Greenland and the ongoing threats against Canada, and it's hard to see how ignoring it is going to help it. But on the other hand, do you then, behind the scenes, start mobilizing the Europeans to basically have a strong position of defense for Greenland? I mean, think about what a favor this is doing to Putin. To go back to your earlier comment, all of a sudden the Europeans not only have to worry about their eastern flank against Putin, they now have to worry about physically the western flank against the Americans. Again, nobody really thought that this would go to this extreme, even after the first term of the Trump administration.
And Rob, you've mentioned Canada a few times there. Canada is opening a consulate in Greenland. How does Ottawa plan to balance its own Arctic security ambitions and partnership with Denmark, while at the same time managing strained Canada-US relations?
Yeah, it's difficult, because one of the lessons that our new Prime Minister Carney has learned from the actions of our former Prime Minister Justin Trudeau with Trump is that if you do anything to even slight Trump in even the most mildest of terms, Trump immediately retaliates, and retaliates with the full force that he's been able to basically accumulate within the American system. And so on the one hand, I think Carney is very aware that he has to be careful about saying anything that Trump is going to take umbrage with. But on the other hand, I mean, obviously Canada is going to have to figure out a way to stand with its Danish and Greenland colleagues on this issue. I mean, how do you support in any principled way and sit back and say, okay, yeah, United States, it's okay for you to invade? But any criticism, of course, isn't going to redirect the wrath of the Americans onto Canada. And so I think Carney right now is trying to figure out how you do, basically chew gum and walk at the same time.
Yeah, thank you so much for your analysis today, Rob Huebert, Director of the Centre for Military Security and Strategic Studies at the University of Calgary.